Hello everyone, I'm Chinzia Damanuti, Marketing Coordinator here at SmartSimple. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar entitled Advanced Search and Search Filters. This quarter we'll be focusing on portal design. Before we begin, I would like to remind you about our upcoming SmartSimple events. Mark your calendars. Registration for Elevate in Nashville will be opening in July. Also, save the date for Block Party New York, September 6th, Block Party Nashville, October 17th, Elevate 2018, which will be taking place at the Sheraton Grand Nashville, and newly added for our European community, Block Party Dublin, that will be taking place November 22nd. SmartSimple will be exhibiting at the Rotary Convention in the Metro Toronto Convention Center from June 23rd to 27th. We also have some webinars already lined up, such as Arcadia X Portals webinar on July 17th and 19th, and our white paper review webinar on September 18th and 20th. Don't forget to register at smartsimple.com/events and be sure to look out for great content we have planned for you this summer. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter. Max Potter has been with SmartSimple since November 2016 and is a technical account advisor. He provides level 2 and premium support services. Interesting fact about Max, he has traveled all over Europe and used to work as a bartender in Australia. During the webinar, you're welcome to ask your questions by typing it into the chat box within your Zoom console. We will answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. And now I'd like to pass it over to Max to get started.
Hi guys. So I guess I'll just summarize what we're going to learn over this webinar. So today we're going to be covering how to use the advanced search and search filters in SmartSimple. So the topics we'll be covering are how to use operators to create searches with multiple conditions, using the drop-downs in the advanced search to narrow down the criteria, and the practical uses of advanced search filters when creating tabs, portal views, filters, and list views. So the search feature, in addition to list views, is the primary way in which system admins, employees, and end users navigate the UTAs in SmartSimple. A list view narrows down the search results to a few select fields shown in each column. Although you're searching for all their records, when you run a search using the basic search, you are limited to narrowing down the criteria by type and status, as well as searching for keywords in the fields that are included in the list view columns. However, advanced search and saved search filters include even more criteria and can run a search using every field on the object, including fields that are not displayed on the list view. You can also search for level 1s or level 2s using criteria other than the properties of the object itself. This includes organization and contact fields for the level 1, parent information for the level 2 activity searches, and you can also use Boolean operators such as OR and AND, as well as brackets in order to cross-reference different criteria. So as you can see here, I've got a slide of the basic search and the advanced search both up. So you can see the basic search is much more simple. It only allows you to search for keywords in the list view columns. So I'll show you what that looks in the system. If we go into we're in the Grant Applications UTA under the Applications tab. If I open up a basic search, actually if you look at the columns, we'll see project title, funding program, organization, up to QE. If we look at the basic search, you have the option to search all these columns, individual columns, but you don't have the option to search any of the other fields that appear in the application. So as you can see, we have much more fields here. We have total project cost, project end date, multiple fields that aren't appearing in the columns in the list views. So we can't search for these using the basic search. We can only search for these using the advanced search. Although in the basic search, we can access filters that were created with the advanced search, which is one of the benefits of saved filters. You might have some useful filters that you've saved previously that you don't want people, maybe you don't want people to access the advanced search, but you want them to be able to use these filters quickly. Now, if we have a look at the advanced search, you see we have the same ability to access the type or status, but we also have new fields. Sorry, we also have the ability to search for every single field in the application and actually multiple fields beyond the application. So this tab here, for example, has the application common fields. Obviously, there are also different field types. Different application types may have different fields, so you can search for those by selecting different field types here, or rather, excuse me, field classes. But we can actually also search for fields in the organizations associated to the application, as well as the person field, which is more commonly known as the assigned contact, or the primary contact, or even the affiliate, which is the branch organization. So just to clarify that, the four field sections are the fields in the application itself. In this case, the organization, the affiliate, and the grant officer field. The standard field names for these, if you haven't changed the caption, are owner, person, customer, and branch fields. So in this case, the organization field is the customer field. The affiliate is the branch. Primary contact is the owner, and grant officer is the person field, or better known as assigned contact. So these are organization and contact fields, and like any object in SmartSimple, they have common fields and other field classes too. So we need to select one of these two. After that, we can populate the second field dropdown with the field name. So let's say we want to search for the organization name within a application. We would select organization, we would select common fields, and we would look for, in this case, it's titled organization. So then in the third dropdown, we can select different search parameters such as contains, matches, starts with, ends with, and is empty. In advanced search, we have the option to also use system filters and personal filters, otherwise known as user filters, whereas in basic search, we only have access to user filters. So if you look at the filters here, you probably recognize these from the basic search. We also have system filters. So system filters are essentially filters that are meant to be used in places other than just the basic search or the advanced search. These can be used throughout the system, and we'll touch on this later. I'll show you how you can use these throughout the system to narrow down search results, not just in the UTA, but in tabs, portals, charts, and graphs. In advanced search, we can search for more than one field at a time using the add button over here. So right now we've only got one criteria selected, but we can select multiple criteria. We can add multiple search parameters, and this also means we need to use operators to dictate the relationship between these characters. So as you can see, we have and, or, and not, or not, as well as brackets here, which allow you to create nested conditions. So when using operators, it's important to think about what we're searching for. For example, if you want to search for a field that has the same owner and the same primary contact, we would use and. If we're looking for one that has one of the two, we would use or. And as I mentioned before, we can create nested conditions. For example, if you're looking for an application that has a specific grant officer and has a submission number beginning with 5, or any application in a certain city, you would use brackets and an and function to nest the first two parameters, and then use the or function for the third. So I'll just give you an example of how that would work. Let's look at this list view here. So this is actually quite inaccurately titled. It says project title, but these are actually the submission numbers. But you'll see the way they've configured it is that the submission number has the year of the application at the front. This is automatically generated. And in this company's case, yours might be different. Maybe yours might just have 18, or maybe the year won't be here. You may have used a different field as reference. But in this case, the year of the application is here, in the submission number. And then you have the organization name here. We have a bunch of organizations, for example, New York's mission, and then we have the primary contact. So as you can see, there are multiple different results here because it has not been narrowed down by a filter. So let's say we want to search for all applications in 2018 under the New York's mission organization, or we want to see all the applications where the primary contact is Dan Eardley, regardless of the first two criteria. What we would do is we would go into a drop-down. So if we go into the next slide, it's quite a blurry image, unfortunately, but I'll break down how the drop-downs work in this case. So you would go into the advanced search. Let's do all types and all statuses. And we would go into open bracket, common fields. We would select, in this case, the submission number. And we're going to go starts with, because you want all the ones that start with 2018. And then we would add another parameter, and let's go with organization common fields, and the organization name is this field here, and we're going to go with, just to show you how contains works, I'm going to type in have contains, and type in New York's instead of New York's mission. So New York's mission contains the words New York's, so we should still get all the New York's mission results. And I'll add a third parameter, which is, remember, we wanted to have either applications that match these two or are owned by, or have the primary contact as Dan Eardley. So in this case, we're going to have to close the bracket because we don't want these parameters to affect the third parameter. So we're going to have the close and then or here. And now there's two places where in the application where primary contact are displayed. It's either a field on the application, or we can go into the primary contact itself and look for a name there. So just for the sake of demonstration, let's go the more complicated route. Go into primary contacts, common fields, and these are all the fields that are in like a person's profile. So we're going to go for full name here, contains, and let's do matches because names are very specific. Dan Eardley. And I'm going to hit search. And now you can see we have all of the applications with the primary contact Dan Eardley, regardless of what the project title or the organization is. Or we have applications here where the first two criteria are met, New York's mission and 2018. And finally, I just want to mention that date fields are slightly different. So if we were to add a date, let's say, and application common fields, go into date created, you have different parameters here. So, and you also input the date using a calendar app in opposed to just typing it in. And so these are pretty intuitive. On or before, on or after is empty. We have within the next X days, within the past X days before today, and X days after today. In that case, it'll use the current date as a criteria, and we'll use the date that you're searching for, the date in the field rather, and reference it against these conditions. So this would be like within, it'll check to see if the date created is within the next, let's say 10 days in this case. And finally, some people might ask, why would you want to use is empty? That's useful for if you're searching for empty fields, obviously, and the reason why you might want to search for that is because maybe you want to see which applications have left out this information for auditing purposes. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about saving search filters. So saving filters is pretty simple. You just create your search like we have here, and then you click Save Filter. And Save Filters will either appear here under Personal Filters or under System Filters. So if we hit Save Filter rather, obviously we give it a meaningful name, like 1, 2, 3, 7, let's say 2. And then if you select user filter, the filter will appear under personal filters, and it will only be used in to search for list views. So remember those ones we saw under the basic search and the ones we saw under user filters, under personal filters in the advanced search, that's where this search will appear. And is public basically means can other users access the search. If you say no, only me as SmartSimple support will be able to access this search. If you say yes, everyone else will be able to access it. And it's also important to note that searches are still subject to the roles and permissions of the selected user. So, for example, if you're searching for applications, but the user who's logged in doesn't have permission to view level 1 applications, it'll just turn up a blank search. So that's how you discern between who can see what. It's not done here. It's done through regular roles and permissions. So let's say public in this case. And here you have the store and filter option. So what this means is, if you remember, when you do a search, even advanced search, you still have to select the type and the status of the results. So sometimes you might want to only save the status because you want the person who's accessing the filter to be able to switch between different types, or vice versa. Or maybe you don't want to save either of them. That's where you would select this. And finally, we just have a summary of the search results of the filter here in plain English. Just gives you a better idea of what you're searching for. So if I hit save here with user filter selected, let's go save as, we'll see that that now appears under, I have to refresh frame. It appears under save filters in the basic search, as well as the advanced search. If we were to select the other one, it would appear under here in system filters. And if you want to update an existing filter, what you would do is you would just go into the filter. Let's say, well, we've already created this one. Make a slight change, Dan Eardley 2, for example. Hit save filter. And now we have the option to update it because we made a change to an existing filter. Or we can hit save as and create a copy with a different name. Okay, so moving on, let's just talk about how we can use filters in list views, tabs, and portals. So like I mentioned before, filters, save system filters aren't only used in UTAs or list views. They're used throughout the system, and also to create new tabs and charts and portals. So let's start with just how you set a filter to a list view. So I've got a test list view here, webinar list view. So let's go and edit this list view. So you can see in here, this is the list view. This is how it's configured. The columns are configured here. This is about searches, so I'm not going to go over how to create list views. But if you look down here, you'd see there's a filter option, which is currently blank. So let's say we want the Dan Eardley filter we created to be the default filter for this list view. We would just search for it under filters here. Let's see if we can find it. I think we saved it as a personal filter, so it won't appear here. These are all system filters. So let's say we just want this filter to be saved to the list view. We would check here, and whenever you open this list view, the default filter will be approved and declined. So I hit saved, go to brand applications. It's showing no results because there are no results that match this criteria. But of course, once you've saved the filter to the list view, you can always go back and change it. So we can change it back to the 1, 2, 3, 7 search, and it would produce these results. And so to create a tab, what you would do is essentially just create a list view, assign a filter to the list view, and then click the Manifest Tab button. So all these tabs here were created using that process. So for example, look at submitted applications. Let's go into the edit view here. we'll see that it's using the submitted applications list view, which is selected, which is already configured, and it has the submitted grants filter. It also has the manifest tab button selected, which allows it to become a tab in the system. This is convenient if you want, let's say, in this case, just to show all submitted applications for a user. They can easily access that tab instead of going into the advanced search and selecting the filter and performing the search. It's just there for convenience sake. So if you look at our webinar example, list view, hit edit view. Let's just stick to the approved and declined filter. All we would have to do is select manifest tab, hit save, go to grant applications again. You see that appears up here now. And so the next thing we can do is actually configure list views in a portal. So I'll show you an example of a user who has a bunch of list views configured in their portal. So let's go into roles and security. Go into user roles, and the organization contact is one of the main roles for an applicant in this system, in this practice system. So let's open that up. Let's go into current users. Let's have a look at Bruce Alder. So if we emulate his session, we'll see that there are multiple list views configured in his portal. You might even recognize some of these from the list views we looked at, like submitted applications, for example. And of course, these are all relevant to him because his permissions as a user only allow him to see his submitted applications. So even though the filter may say applications with the submitted status, Bruce Alder likely only has permission to view his own applications in his roles and permissions. So that's what stops him from seeing all the submitted applications in the system. Now, if we look at this one, he has a section here, to-do list and pending items. And he has a list view here called upcoming payments. So let's see how this list view is configured and how it was created in the system. And let's also create a chart using the system filters just to show you how it's possible to do that. So let's just end his session here. Now we'll go back to the roles and security, user roles, organization contact, portal. So here's the portal. This is in the home section. So you remember the section was titled to-do list and pending items. So we go into there, and you can see all of the list views configured for him here. Upcoming payments was the one we were looking at before. So let's have a look at how this was configured. So he would have just created a new portal section, given it name, upcoming payments, selected the list view type, selected the upcoming payments list view, and if you open up the list view here, he would have selected the upcoming payments filter, which likely is the filter that shows the payments with the upcoming status. So the type of the results need to be payments, the status must be upcoming. Now let's say we want to create one of these, but we actually want to do it in chart form. So what we would do is, let's go back into the portal, go back home, to-do list and pending items. Let's create our own version of this. We'll add a subsection. We'll call it upcoming payments chart. And instead of list view, we're going to select chart. And I'm just going to give it the same title as the name. And so we're going to select the same list view in this case. So you can see here, these are all the different UTAs, all the different list views that are available throughout the system under the system list view section we were looking at before. So the one he had selected was upcoming payments. So we would select that list view. We'd go in here, and remember before we associated a filter with a list view? So in this case, the upcoming payments filter is already associated with this list view. We could always give another filter to this list view, or change the default one, or just have no filter actually. But in this case, just for the sake of the example, let's leave it as upcoming payments because that would give us the clearest results in this case. So we hit save for this list view. Now we have to give the chart a title. So let's call the chart upcoming. And it's a bar chart, which means there's an x-axis and a y-axis. And here you'll select the different fields in the list view to be your x-axis and your y-axis. So if you remember, the list view showed the organization name and the amount of money that was required. So for the x-axis, let's have organization. The y-axis, let's have payment amount. And we'll give it a label, org, y-axis label, amount. And we'll just hit save to create this. So if I've done it correctly, there should now be a chart with showing the same results in Bruce Adler's portal. So let's go into current users again to see all the users of the organization contact role. We'll look at Bruce Alder, emulate his session. So you'll see here we have the upcoming payments list view, and then we have the upcoming payments chart, which is showing the exact same information, but we've configured it in chart form. And there are many different charts. There's pie charts, there's line graphs. This is a bar chart. And if you look between these two, you'll see how they're similar. You might be wondering why there's only 3 bars. It's because there's actually only 3 organizations. The chart automatically, in this case a bar chart, will automatically group the organizations. So you got New York's Mission, Brooklyn Community Outreach, and Williamsfield Community Outreach, and they're all showing in the chart. And just wondering how you delete these things. All you would do is you would just go into the portal, home again, to do some pending items, and it's quite simple. You just hit delete. And so finally, it's probably best just to give you some information how to manage your list views. So a simple way to access list views, a simple way to access system filters is just to click on your name on the top right, go into filters, and you'll have access to many of the filters here, although you'll be limited in your ability to edit them. Probably the best way is, for a more comprehensive way in which to manage filters, is to go into global settings. So we would go up here, we go into search filters. Here you can break it down by UTA, by staff and contact list views, filters rather, office and organization. Let's look at the grants one we were looking at before. So you have a list of all your filters here, whether they're on the level 1 or the level 2. And let's look for the one we created, or one of the ones we've been looking at so far. For example, upcoming payments, which is a level 2 filter. We can go straight to edit it here, which will take us to the filter, or if you notice there was a delete button there, so that's how you would delete it. So just one thing I forgot to mention too is that when you create filters on the level 2, or when you perform your search on level 2, on the level 1, like I mentioned before, you can break down your search criteria by the customer, person, owner, and the application fields. On a level 2, for example, activities, if you create a filter for a level 2 list view, you actually have the ability to search the parent. So you actually can search in the application as well. So for example, this is this list view shows payments, which are level 2s. But when we're performing a search for payments, we also have the ability to search for fields in the parent object, which in this case is the application. So that concludes my webinar for advanced searches and search filters. We're going to open it up to questions now.
Great. So I have one here. Are there any best practices for naming filters?
Yes, so generally you can name filters whatever you want, but if you look at the filters here, you'll see they've labeled them based on where they're going to be used. So for example, these filters are only going to be used in Arcadia, so they've labeled them Arcadia. Many filters are made just for portals, like many of the ones we saw in Bruce Alder's account. Those list views serve no purpose other than to appear in someone's portal. They're not really meant to be, used by staff to search for objects in the level 1 or level 2. So therefore, most people will label them as portal. Let's see if we can find one here. There we go. So this person's labeled it family portal. So this list view is only meant to be used for a specific portal, and they've labeled it as such, so people know that's why it's there, and maybe not to delete it.
Great. And how can I copy a filter?
Yeah, so to copy a filter, there's no copy button, but what you would do is you would just open up the filter here. Let's say you want to copy this one again. And like I said before, you just use the Save As button. So you would hit Save Filter, and it would give you an update and a Save As option. And you can also save as with a different name, of course, so you know it's a different one and with different criteria.
Okay, and I have, can I give users the ability to set their custom filters for list views in the portal?
It would depend if they have access to the configuration. So generally, end users won't have the ability to do that. They would only have the ability to do that if they have the ability to create new list views or filters and save them to the portal. So they would have to have access to the user roles and access settings in order to do that. Although if users have the ability in the roles and permissions to switch the filter, then they will be able to do that in the list view itself in their portal.
Okay, great. So yeah, we'll just maybe give a few minutes if anyone has any more final questions. Great, looks like that's all the time we have for today. Before we go, I want to make sure to remind everyone to mark your calendars for our upcoming events and to register for the rest of our webinars in July and September. You can register at smartsimple.com/events. Also, save the date for Block Party New York, September 6th, Block Party Nashville, October 17th, Elevate, October 17th and 19th, and Block Party Dublin, November 22nd. Thanks, everyone, for taking the time to join us for Advanced Search and Search Filters. We hope you found this material useful. We'd love to hear your feedback on today's webinar and encourage you to fill out the client survey, which will be sent to you after this presentation. If any questions pop up along the way, Max and the SmartSimple support team are always here to help. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.